It's a really unusual vineyard site, situated kind of in the epicenter of Great American Pinot Noir, the Dundee Hills American Viticultural Area. So those of you who know the Red Hills of Dundee, that is where we are located. But unlike the majority of the vineyards in this area, we're at the very northwest corner. So Dundee Hills is big volcanic hillside. On the back northwest corner, as you get closer to the Yamhill-Carlton AVA and Ribbon Ridge, the soils change dramatically. And that's our story. We're known for having one of the most geologically diverse vineyard sites in not just the Willamette Valley, but pretty much anywhere in North America. It's where the volcanic soils of the Willamette Valley merge into the older and underlying marine sediment soils. So what were the bottom of the Pacific Ocean up until about 15 million years ago. So it's this
you mentioned a lot of like training happening there, like Pinot Camp doing their stuff there to like educate people on what diversity and terroir can look like. And it's so worth knowing and understanding.
Yeah. If you're going to come to the Willamette Valley and learn about the geology that has defined this region, you talk about the Columbia basalt flows, you talk about the Missoula floods, you talk about the uplift marine sediments. I mean, that is our vineyard site. We really are at the confluence of where all that existed. And because of that, we have 18 different soil types within a 56-acre mid-slope vineyard that's dry farmed. And the way that the vineyard was planted back in 2006 was based on the soil mapping. So when Dr. Ivana, the founder of this property and the founder of our other two properties, came here to Oregon in 2005 with Lynn Pinner Ash at the time, and they found this property, the idea was, we'll look at the south exposures on the volcanic soils, and they dug 70 boreholes around the property and realized, whoa, this is unlike anything else in the valley. There's some really beautiful southwest exposures on the backside of the property, and that's all marine sediment soil. So 18 different soil types, 27 different vineyard blocks of Pinot Noir. Each one of the vineyard blocks is independent from one another in terms of how they're farmed and also made into their own individual wines. So you have the Rivanna Vineyard Pinot Noir in the portfolio. That wine is actually 27 different Pinot Noirs that go through farming, harvest, micro fermentations, and barrel lot aging completely independent of one another. And then after 11 months, kind of reassembled to represent the entire vineyard. And then within that, there's, every year, probably 9 to 12 different Pinot Noirs that are produced that are mailing list only. So the Rivanna estate's always it's the flagship. It's part of the allocation membership. And it's the one wine that we have that is from the estate 100% that goes into your guys' portfolio. And it's the same wine that was in Wine Spectator's top 100 with the 2010 vintage. It was number 17. So a very, very well-respected vineyard site and wine. And then beyond that, for what you guys work with, the Terroir Series Pinot is also half from this vineyard behind me. And it's mostly the younger vines planted in 07, but made identically. It's all micro ferments from these individual parcels. And it's basically just selections of barrels is the only difference. So the fact that Terroir Series, the red label Pinot you guys have in the book, is appellated as Willamette Valley Pinot. But if you actually look at what it is, it's 4 single vineyard sites. It's our Rivanna vineyard and selections of barrels. And it's also Finwood Vineyard, which is in the Yamhill-Carlton AVA that we make a $65 bottle of single vineyard Pinot from. Xena Crown Vineyard, which is now, Jackson family charges $100 bottles of wine from that vineyard. We still get fruit from that and do a single vineyard. And then we also get some fruit from a vineyard up in Chehala Mountains. So it's those 4 single vineyards all within sub-AVAs that make up that wine. So for a $35 SRP wine, it's the quality in that wine is, definitely far superior to what the price tag is.
Yeah, absolutely. The wine, there's stellar. And 2 for the whites. I have Pinot Gris and Chardonnay in inventory also. And I have to say, I haven't had the Pinot Gris in a little while, but I remember wonderful things. And I have a bottle here, so I'm going to taste that at some point soon. But Chardonnay, to me, is like this, we're seeing this upswing in interest and desire for and call for Oregon Chard. And I remember this just being like, if you want to show somebody what a Chardonnay from Oregon can look like and should look like, to me, Alexana is the one.
Cool.
It's versatile. I hate crowd pleaser that gets overused, but like if you have picky people that think they only like Napa Valley Chardonnay, this is like so elegant.
Yeah, I think it's universally delicious. I think people tell us all the time our Chardonnay. I mean, even here in the Willamette Valley, you go to like, top restaurants in the valley that the winemaking community supports and goes to, you'll see our Terroir Series Chardonnay on their glass program, because a lot of people do think that's a really kind of a benchmark representation of cool climate Chardonnay that's from Dijon clones. And same theory as the Terroir Series Pinot, it's single vineyard sites, 4 single vineyards. And I'm actually directly behind me. This is the Chardonnay. So we have 1.5 acres of Chardonnay directly behind me, and then on the other end of the property, there's another little bit over an acre. And then we get a little bit of fruit from the Finwood Vineyard that we get some Pinot Noir from, and then the Nicholas Vineyard up in Chehalis Mountains. And Grand Moraine, which again, we had started to get the fruit prior to Jackson family purchasing it, but there's a reason that Jackson family bought it. It's an incredible vineyard for Chardonnay. So yeah, that Chardonnay, to, again, kind of go back to this single vineyard, nested AVA sourced fruit. And we have buy the glass programming set up on that. So it's just, again, like if you go into an account and they're looking for, oh yeah, I've heard Oregon Chardonnay is on the rise, like everybody's talking about it, it's getting all these crazy ratings. It's one of the only true cool climate representations of Chardonnay, I think, in North America, because we do sit in that kind of perfect ripening profile where you get citrus and tree fruits intermingled with maybe a little bit of that stone fruit personality as well, but we're nowhere near as ripe as a tropical fruit profile of Chardonnay you tend to see down in Napa and Sonoma a lot of times. So yeah, I think a lot of people are super excited about Chardonnay from here in the valley, and we started making it in 2012, and yeah, definitely I think a beautiful representation of what that grape can taste like from serious vineyard sites here in the valley.
And what are you experiencing, like, with the heat increasing? I mean, I'm sure someone asked me to ask about this.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's more about fluctuation, right? It's not about like total growing degree days, heat summation increases. We saw that in 2014. We saw that in 2015. But, it's like 2016 was known as the earliest. It was the earliest bud break because it was a warm winter. So earliest bud break, earliest flowering, earliest harvest. We had some rainier vintages recently as well. So Willamette Valley, I think, is more about vintage importance can't be understated. Like every year is dramatically different. We have had a couple that are, 14, 15 were both really, really warm record temps back to back. But year in and year out, we're kind of like the Garden of Eden of growing regions. It's like we're 40 miles from the Pacific Ocean. We're 45 degrees northern latitude. We do exist in that little window where you can barely ripen Pinot. We're warmer than Burgundy, but we're much cooler than Sonoma and Napa.
Right.
But yeah, in terms of like global warming, things heating up, Tempranillo, Syrah, they're planted in pockets. Dundee Hills is the south end of Dundee Hills is definitely considered like one of the warmest parts of the AVA. So you'll see some people growing Syrah and Tempranillo down there. But yeah, most of everything here is still Pinot and Chard. People aren't going too crazy.
And I don't mean to get ahead of you, but if like you have to do like a little panoramic shot for everybody so they can kind of see where the winery is in relation. Yeah. I've had the pleasure of going to a number of vineyards and wineries around the world, and I've never seen trees growing up out of the vineyard like that. And just this place is unbelievable. And what a beautiful day too.
Yeah, it's kind of breaking news. We're in the middle of construction. So we're actually expanded the hospitality. So if you see on the right side of the, when you were here, we sat in the outdoor kitchen. Outdoor kitchen.
Yeah, I remember you're like, you're maybe the last people to see it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'll kind of go around here and you can see just how.
Jesus.
Not a terrible place. And we're just looking at, so where we're standing right now is what we call the landslide blocks. It's because about 1,000 years ago, there was a series of landslides off of Warden Hill, which for those of you that know the Dundee Hills, Warden Hill is kind of like the Solverado Trail of Napa Valley here, kind of cuts right across the top of Dundee Hill. So to the west, or excuse me, to the east, that's all volcanic soil. This area, the landslide blocks, is a mixing of those soils because of, higher elevations have sloughed off into the lower part of the vineyard. So it's a mixture of volcanic and marine sedimentary. And then over here, we have another 20 acres right over that ridge line right in front of us. and that's all marine sedimentary soil. So those really are the three, if you were to kind of group the soil types, that's how they'd fit within. And there's a ton of variation because we sit on a slope and a elevation change of 300 feet. So it's really, different elevations expose different time periods because of the erosion that happened here. So It's a crazy vineyard. And the Pinot Gris, so yeah, walking right by the Chardonnay right now. The Pinot Gris is just about another 100 meters farther down, and that's some of the original vines planted here. So we used to just make like 150, 200 cases of Pinot Gris. And then we started to get some fruit from a really well-known vineyard here in the Dundee Hills, which is like higher elevation, really beautiful, crisp acid. And then we started to get some fruit from a really, really amazing vineyard. It's actually planted in the early 80s called Stone Ridge. And it's some of the oldest own-rooted Pinot Gris in the valley. So it's those three vineyard sites that go into that terroir series, Pinot Gris, to give some idea of like kind of a continuation of that terroir series conversation. Those aren't just Willamette Valley appellated wines. Those are, pretty storied vineyard sites that are pieced together with purpose.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah, not a terrible place to hang out. Yeah, another thing you notice, like all the undulation, we have 8 different road directions here as well. So 11 clones of Pinot now, 18 soil types, 32 vineyard blocks. There's a ton of diversity here. I mean, that's the story. It's really about precision viticulture and a crazy little vineyard site and trying to make classically beautiful wines in a gravity flow winery.
So we are all obviously just barely dealing with restaurants reopening, and historically Alexana and Ravana have been mostly restaurant-oriented brands, of course. So
yes, good old on-premise.
Is that kind of where the lane we want to stay in? I mean, obviously we're all adjusting, but what has been working well, and just so the team can understand kind of what's been working well out there, like shall we just go after it? Do you have any like tips or anything about?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question.
Because what I'm hearing, just we're being candid, people are like, it's such a hot category, Willamette Valley Pinot, and they're not all created equal. So it's like about differentiating. It's great that people are enjoying the wines, but I want them to drink these wines. Yeah. And then also the kind of transition to more of a retail focus.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the world we've been living in is the same. We are about 85% on premise as a company for the last 7 to 10 years. So for us, the one area where we've always been really successful is kind of high-end private clubs as well, and independent retail. So those two worlds have always been somewhat strong for us, but it's a pricing conversation right now. And for us, we're fortunate to have higher SRPs, but we also have price protection on a lot of stuff because we do have a huge mailing list and sell things direct. So, it's just really about finding partners out there in the market that, we're happy to let people make a living and have a bigger margin, but protect a little bit of the pricing in terms of we want to be able to work with our wines with them in the future. It's not about being a part of this race to the bottom approach. And I think we talked to a lot of wineries here in the Willamette Valley. I think we're all kind of trying to work together on that and not hurt the overall Willamette Valley brand because, we talk to people all the time and I get proposals for the Terroir Series Pinot being like, hey, I'll buy 800 cases of that wine if you can sell it to me at this price. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, but it's, and we don't know what's going to happen, just like anybody else with the a lot of our restaurant partners after this. But we've pivoted a lot with pricing in terms of making more of the on-premise pricing available to retail. But it's always a conversation of being like making sure that they have the resources, like the video series we're starting, the content to where they can tell that story, and it's not always just going out as, hey, here's a 94-point wine spectator wine that's normally $50 that you can get for $26.50.
No, and I really appreciate that because it's such a consistent position that you guys have had. And like even when Scott was in our market, like it was always the same kind of thing. We want to do the right things with the right people for the right reasons. And that's really always been the approach. It's been about like real quality over quantity and making sure that the wines find themselves in the right homes. So that's still the case, but good to remind everybody of this, like what these wines are and kind of where they belong. And there's so many, there's great bottle shops that really really can enjoy this.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, just from my experience traveling around the country for the last few years, I mean, anybody who's a buyer who's ever been to Pinot Camp and really does have that passion for the Willamette Valley, if they do hear the story of what we do, or a lot of them have been here for the geology seminars we hosted.
Yeah, they host the geology seminars. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it's like, I think that's a good place to start for retailers. And there's a lot of people in the Colorado market who've come, whether you're talking Boulder up in the mountains or Denver who've been to Pinot Camp. So just knowing who those people are, and, it's definitely a challenging time. So, I mean, we greatly appreciate you guys going out with the wines. We know that, right now it's big name brands for cheap prices is what the game is. We're trying to be smart about it and position ourselves well.
That's what we're trying to do.
We've been really lucky to find some people who, just like everybody, we're big on relationships, and we like to take care of people who we work with, and, bringing them out here to Oregon and spending time with them, and really just long-term relationships on the retail side. And I mean, on-premise has been what we've done for a long time, but retail, we're really understanding that is going to be a huge part of the future of how the wine business works. So.
Yeah, it 100% is. But people are always going to want to have a deeper experience and authenticity. So that's where these wines fit.
Yeah, and then for kind of the correlation there with Alexana, this incredible property, the two other properties, Ravana down in St. Helena, that property was started in '97. Kind of a cool story because it was raw land in St. Helena back in 1997. There wasn't a lot of it, and there's definitely not any of it anymore. So it's kind of one of the last of a generation of actual estate vineyard wineries that were developed from the ground up, because there was no winery and there was no vineyard on that 10-acre piece of land in 1997. And now it's an 8.2-acre vineyard that's over 20 years old and produces some. For those of you who've tasted the Ravana Cab, you get it. I mean, that's a really delicious bottle of wine, and has an incredible following.
You have a little bit, you guys, of Cab Sauv Terroir in the 2015 vintage, just a little bit. And then the St. Helena Estate Cab 17 vintage, we have 9 6-packs of that. So
yeah, I think allocations are usually pretty small. I think last year you guys maybe got like 4 6-packs, and then this year I think we tried to bump it up to 9. But and then down in Argentina, where I met Dr. Ivana, I lived there for 6 years, and still go down 3 or 4 times a year and work with the team. But yeah, Bodega Corazon del Sol is this little 17-acre estate in a really cool subzone of Uco Valley called Los Chicayes. And Los Chicayes is very, very western edge of Uco Valley and known as the rockiest subzone in Mendoza. And we're pioneering Rhone varieties down there. Like, we made the first GSM ever, La Luminoso, which is in the portfolio.
I see that. We have 3 different wines in stock here. The Luminoso,
you have a Soleado,
and the Soledado.
Yeah, so the Soleado is a single vineyard Bordeaux blend, the original parcels of Malbec, Cab Franc, Merlot, and Cab Sauv. So like 600 cases every year. Like, if you have people who are serious about like really beautiful Bordeaux blends that aren't just like big and over the top, they want like actual structure and acidity and that mountain fruit personality, that wine's shockingly delicious. And if it was from Napa, it would be like $130 a bottle.
I think it's something you give someone blind and then blow their mind, right?
Yeah, exactly. And in the Luminoso, like the GSM, I think is definitely a hand sell, but we've gotten a ton. I mean, we've sold a ton of that wine. I mean, we only have about 150 cases a year to sell in distribution. But yeah, it's developed quite the following. I mean, it's kind of a cult wine amongst people who actually have South American wines on their wine list, as it is this tiny production, single parcel GSM from Uco Valley. It's not really made in a gimmicky way. It's actually a quality wine. And then the Uco Valley Malbec, I look at the Uco Valley Malbec. I think you guys have the 17s in stock yet? Or are you on the tail end of the 16?
Yeah, tail end of the 16, it looks like.
Okay, so I mean, you can just tell by looking at the label on that wine, 12.7% alcohol. It's not your typical Malbec.
Yeah,
higher elevation.
And we tasted last time you were in the round robin. We tasted that wine, and every time I'm just like, it's so elegant.
Yeah, and you guys, when you get through those 16s, the exciting part of the 17 slightly riper, but still that like kind of classic high-toned red fruit Malbec, which isn't super common, but floral, violets, and just like really pretty earthiness to it as well. It has the Los Chicayes subzone on the front that's really prominent. So instead of just saying Mendoza, it actually lists the Indicación Geográfica that it's delineated from. And the bottles are individually bottle numbered now because we only make 2,000 cases. So it's like competing against people who make, their limited productions are 10,000 case productions of Malbec, and a lot of people are making 50,000 case production Malbecs. We're definitely one of the smallest wineries in Argentina. I mean, there's almost 70,000 acres in Uco Valley, and there's 73 producers. We are one of those 73 producers, and we have 17 acres. So we are kind of that end of the spectrum for Argentina. And we had our high-end Malbec Gran Reserva was the highest rated wine in Wine Spectator from Argentina last year. So it was like number 74 in the top 100. So yeah, Corazon del Sol, before it was kind of like, oh, Santiago Archibald from Archibald Ferrer is the winemaker. It's this crazy little project Dr. Ivana's doing in Uco Valley. They planted the vineyards, they built the winery. It's this incredible little pocket of super rocky soils. And now we have something to point to that kind of validates. It's like, hey, this is, we've gotten some recognition for these wines. And I think that's really helped the conversation, because before we were always coming in from the outside of just being different. And now just having we developed a really good following with the mailing list, like lots of people joining it, and the wines will be allocated moving forward. I mean, we're getting to the point where, we sell, of the 500 cases of Luminoso, we'll sell 350 through the tasting room and mailing list, and then just kind of parcel out the wines in distribution.
I'm going to buy some
cool.
for me.
yeah, they're delicious. But yeah, for us, the biggest thing is supporting you guys, like making sure you have the tools to tell the story, and also just tasting the wines. So, I mean, making sure that we're talking about them on a regular basis on vintage rolls, telling the story, because they change every year in terms of personality. They're a little bit different. So yeah, Carter is going to be your guys. He's moving forward, being the face of Ravana, awesome guy, and a great resource too. I mean, you have the Maverick team to know that you guys have a place in Napa, a place in Oregon, and a place in Argentina that is here to support you with what you need. So
it's super
anything
simple.
we can do to help, that's what our jobs.
Thank you. And there is always a consistent thread between, there's like, one doesn't end and the other begins. It's like always to me been like this full circle with all three of the projects and properties. And it just really, it all comes back to some of the same core values, and like seeing that vineyard, every time just blows my mind.
It's a special place for sure.
Well, thank you so much. I so appreciate you taking the time, and I can't wait to share this with the team. And you saw our new talking shelf talkers that they can
scan. Those are cool. I like those.
Video.
I like those.
So thank you. We're just getting those out in circulation, so people are loving those. We have those for all the current releases, and we'll make sure that everybody gets aware of the Corazon del Sol wines, because I have to taste the other ones that aren't the Malbec. So
yeah, pull a sample, please.
I will gladly do that. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for all you do as well, Montana. I appreciate you taking the time to make sure that our story's out there as well. So
it's so important. Well, you have a wonderful rest of the day, and we will see you hopefully in person next
time. I hope everybody on the team gets a chance to come out eventually. This place is amazing, so we'd love to share it with you.
I will make sure they know I rave.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Take care. Ciao.